The sky above Earth was quiet, an eerie calm hanging in the air. But then, something changed. A strange alien fleet appeared without warning, their massive ships hovering silently over Earth's orbit. The ships were sleek and smooth, with surfaces that seemed to shimmer in a way no human-made vessel ever could. The world's defense systems scrambled to react, but no one could make sense of what was happening. There were no weapons fired, no messages received, just these alien ships looming in the sky. For hours, the ships stayed there, motionless, and then just as suddenly as they arrived, they disappeared. Not a single trace remained of their presence, except for one thing. In the place where the alien ships had been, there was a wreck. A massive piece of twisted metal and scorched steel, a ship of unimaginable size, lay drifting just outside Earth's atmosphere. Its shape was unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. The remains of the alien ship looked like a battlefield. Parts of it were torn open, as if something had exploded inside. The ship's hull was covered in strange markings, alien symbols that no one could immediately decipher. There was no sign of life or activity. It was as if the ship had been abandoned. But how? What had happened to the crew? Why had they left it behind? A team of Earth's top scientists and military officials gathered to examine the wreck. The initial response was cautious. What if it was a trap? The military had learned long ago that alien visitors didn't always come with peaceful intentions. The wreck was carefully pulled into Earth's orbit by high-tech space tractors, and the first teams were sent aboard to investigate. It was a dangerous task. No one knew what could be lurking inside the wreckage. As the team suited up, the unease was thick in the air. This was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Could this be a weapon, a message, or a disaster in the making? Inside the wreck, the atmosphere was still. The air was thin, and there was an eerie silence that made every sound feel amplified. The inside of the ship was nothing like the human spacecraft they were used to. The walls were curved, almost organic, and everything seemed alive in a way that was hard to explain. There were no seats, no obvious control systems, nothing that humans would consider normal for a ship. The walls seemed to pulse with faint energy, as if the ship itself was still holding on to life. The team made their way deeper into the ship, moving carefully. Every step they took was met with the strange hum of alien technology. The deeper they went, the stranger it became. The markings on the walls grew more intricate, more foreign. There were rooms filled with equipment that seemed to be both familiar and completely alien at the same time. Some parts of the ship had been completely destroyed, but others were strangely intact. It was as if the ship had been damaged in a way that humans couldn't fully understand. And yet, it still held some sort of energy. Suddenly, as they reached what seemed to be the heart of the ship, one of the engineers stopped. He stared at a panel that seemed to flicker with strange lights. His eyes widened, and his voice was barely a whisper. This is a weapon. This whole ship, it was a weapon. The realization hit hard. This wreck, this mysterious alien ship, wasn't just a piece of lost technology. It was a weapon. And from the look of it, it had been designed to cause massive destruction. The markings on the walls, the strange energy readings, the odd layout, it all pointed to one thing. This ship had been built for war. And now it was sitting just outside Earth's atmosphere, abandoned and forgotten. As the team took more readings, they found something even more unsettling. The ship was not only a weapon, it was still alive. It was dormant, but there was power flowing through the ship's core, like the pulse of something waiting to awaken. The ship's technology was beyond anything humanity had ever seen. It was more advanced than anything Earth had ever created. But there was something else too, something the team couldn't quite place. The wreckage wasn't just a sign of an alien fleet's defeat, it was a message. And that message was terrifying. Before they could make sense of what they had found, the military leadership sent a warning. Satellites had detected strange energy signatures in deep space, moving rapidly toward Earth. Were the aliens coming back? Or was this a new threat altogether? As the team stared at the wreckage, they realized one thing with growing fear. Whatever the wrecked ship was, it had drawn the attention of something far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. In those first few moments, the stakes couldn't have been higher. Earth's safety now depended on understanding this wreck, but as they soon realized, it wasn't just a ship, it was a ticking time bomb, a weapon that could destroy them all if not handled carefully. But what could they do? The wreck was here, the technology was alien, and it held the power to change everything. Little did they know, the arrival of the alien fleet was only the beginning. The true danger was only just starting to reveal itself. The weeks that followed the discovery of the alien wreck were filled with intense focus and uncertainty. The wreck was brought into Earth's orbit and stationed near one of the most secure space stations, where the brightest minds from every corner of the globe worked tirelessly on deciphering its secrets. Every scientist and engineer aboard knew the stakes were higher than anything they'd ever faced before. They were dealing with a force beyond anything they could understand, an alien weapon capable of wiping out entire civilizations, yet abandoned and left to drift. It was both a puzzle and a ticking time bomb. At first, the ship seemed dormant, almost lifeless. Its once glimmering hull now looked dull, its strange markings faded and unreadable. But as Earth's engineers and scientists began their work, they quickly realized the ship wasn't truly dead. It was only sleeping. It had a power source, one that pulsed softly beneath its surface, as if the ship itself was waiting for something. But waiting for what? The questions piled up, and no one had the answers. The first breakthrough came when they managed to access a series of consoles embedded deep inside the wreck. They weren't like anything humanity had ever encountered. Instead of buttons and levers, the consoles seemed to respond to touch in a way that suggested a sort of organic interaction. One of the scientists, Dr. Elaine Reynolds, was the first to unlock a connection with the ship's system. As her fingers brushed against the control surface, the ship seemed to react. The walls hummed, and the faint glow of alien lights flickered back to life. She stepped back, eyes wide with disbelief. "It's alive, or at least it's responding," she said, her voice filled with awe and caution. But her words only deepened the mystery. The ship wasn't just waiting for an order. It was responding to an unknown force. Could it be the energy inside the wreck was waiting for something? Or was it a signal that the aliens were returning? The more they worked, the more it became clear this ship was much more than a weapon. It was a key, but a key to what? They still didn't know. As the team pressed forward, they began analyzing the alien technology, trying to reverse engineer its systems. The power core was like nothing Earth had ever seen, an energy source that could sustain itself for centuries, drawing from deep space in ways that defied every law of physics known to man. But it was unstable. It hummed and crackled with an energy that was as dangerous as it was magnificent. One wrong move, and the entire ship could ignite, taking a large portion of Earth's orbit with it. But if they could control it, they could harness the power to end all wars. Despite the danger, there was an undeniable temptation to unlock the ship's potential. The military had already made it clear that the wreck was a critical asset, not only for defense but for humanity's future. In a world where global tensions were rising, this alien ship could be the difference between survival and destruction. But as they worked, a deeper unease grew. The ship's systems seemed to react unpredictably. Sometimes it would be silent for hours, and then, without warning, it would hum loudly, sending waves of energy through the station. Something wasn't right. Then came the second breakthrough. An encrypted message was uncovered, hidden deep within the ship's core systems. It was unlike any language the team had ever encountered. The symbols and shapes on the screen seemed to shift and change before their eyes, almost as if the ship itself was trying to communicate. Dr. Reynolds was the first to recognize a pattern in the symbols, a sequence that might represent a form of language. After days of painstaking work, they managed to decipher the first few lines of the message. It was a warning. The message was clear but fragmented. It spoke of an ancient race that had created the weapon, a race that had fallen into ruin. They had constructed this ship for war, a weapon of unimaginable power meant to conquer and control. But something had gone wrong. The weapon had become uncontrollable, its power too much for even the creators to manage. They abandoned the ship, leaving it behind, hoping it would drift into nothingness. But the message was not just a warning. It was a plea, begging anyone who found it to never activate the weapon. This ship, the message read, was the end of us. Do not awaken it, for the destruction it brings is beyond measure. Let it remain lost. It was chilling. The team felt the weight of the words hanging over them. They were sitting on a weapon that had destroyed an entire race, and the aliens hadn't just left the ship behind. They had run from it. Why? What had happened to make them abandon their creation? And if they couldn't control it, could humanity? Before they could dwell on this, there was another unsettling discovery. The wreck was being watched. Space surveillance had picked up a fleet of ships moving toward Earth, coming from deep within the galaxy. They were not human ships, and they were fast. The question was no longer about the wreck itself. It was about the aliens. Had they come back? Were they aware that humanity had unlocked the ship's secrets? And if so, what were they planning to do? The clock was ticking. Whatever the aliens were preparing to do, it was coming fast. And soon, Earth would have to decide whether it could control this deadly new weapon, or if it would unleash a force it couldn't possibly handle. The mystery of the wreck had only deepened, and the stakes had never been higher. The tension in the control room was thick. The countdown had begun, and the fleet of unknown ships was rapidly approaching Earth. On the surface, the wrecked alien ship drifted silently, its ominous energy pulse seeming to grow stronger by the minute. The military leaders were now fully aware that the alien presence wasn't a random encounter. It was intentional. But what was the purpose behind their return? Had they come to reclaim their weapon, or was there something more at play? Dr. Elaine Reynolds paced the room, her mind racing with the implications of the encrypted message they had uncovered. The alien warning couldn't be ignored, yet it wasn't as simple as abandoning the wreck and hoping for the best. The military had made it clear that Earth was already on the brink of war with other factions. The potential power that lay dormant in the ship could change everything, if they could unlock it and use it properly. But the risks were staggering. The last message from the aliens had been clear. The weapon was too dangerous to be awakened. Yet the military believed it was the only chance they had to defend themselves against the approaching fleet. The stakes had shifted. The wreck, which had once been a mystery, had now become Earth's most precious and most dangerous asset. The decision wasn't easy, but after much deliberation, the generals gave the order. The wreck would be activated, and humanity would attempt to harness the alien technology. But they had to be careful. There were far too many unknowns. If they couldn't control it, the consequences would be catastrophic. But if they succeeded, they could gain the upper hand in a war that was already looming over the planet. As the activation began, the alien ship's core hummed to life, sending waves of energy across the station. The lights flickered, and the walls seemed to pulse with a strange rhythmic energy. It was both exhilarating and terrifying to watch. The team was tense as they monitored the ship's reactions. Every system they accessed was more advanced than the last, but there were moments of uncertainty when things seemed to malfunction or glitch, as if the ship itself was resisting their attempts to understand it. The core itself was a thing of beauty and terror. It glowed with an eerie, radiant light, unlike any power source Earth had ever seen. But even as the ship's systems came online, there was something unsettling about it, something that felt wrong. Dr. Reynolds stood at the control panel, her fingers hovering over the buttons. She was about to make the final move to fully activate the ship's weapon systems when she paused. The air was thick with static, and the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Something felt off. It was almost as if the ship knew they were trying to control it. And it didn't like it. A loud hum filled the room, and the ship's systems began to glow brighter, faster. Something was responding. But what? Was the ship ready to fire? Or had they triggered something even worse? A voice crackled over the intercom. "Dr. Reynolds, we're picking up strange signals. There's a massive fleet heading directly toward us, too fast for us to intercept." Elaine's heart skipped a beat. The fleet, it was already here. On the other side of the station, soldiers prepared for combat, but there was nothing they could do. This was not a fight they could win with weapons alone. The alien fleet was advancing, its ships massive and powerful, more advanced than any human technology. But now they had the ship. Now they had a weapon of their own. As the fleet drew closer, Dr. Reynolds made a split-second decision. She pressed the final button, activating the ship's weapons system. In an instant, the ship's core flared with bright, radiant energy, and its massive guns hummed to life. The sound was deafening. It was like the roar of a beast awakened from a deep slumber, its power unlike anything Earth had ever seen. The station shook with the force of the energy being released. For a moment, everything stood still. The alien fleet had arrived, its ships looming over Earth's orbit, waiting for whatever came next. And then, without warning, the alien weapon fired. A massive energy blast erupted from the wrecked ship, cutting through space with terrifying speed. The blast hit the lid ship of the alien fleet, and in an instant, it exploded in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave sent the remaining ships scattering, some veering off course, while others disintegrated into dust. The weapon had worked. Earth had just destroyed an entire alien fleet with a single shot. But as the team watched in stunned silence, they knew that this was only the beginning. The aliens hadn't just sent a fleet to Earth. They had sent a message. The question was, what would they do next? Would the alien race come back in full force, determined to reclaim their weapon? Or had this single shot been enough to send them into hiding, to force them to retreat for good? As Earth's military scrambled to assess the damage, one thing was certain: the wreck had changed everything. Humanity now had the upper hand. But what would they do with that power? What would the rest of the galaxy think about a race that had just defeated an alien armada with a single weapon, a weapon that hadn't even been fully understood yet? The mystery of the wreck was far from over. The galaxy had just witnessed what humanity was capable of, and they were terrified. The victory was short-lived. As the dust settled from the destruction of the alien fleet, Earth's military quickly began to assess the damage. The wrecked ship had just proven its terrifying power, but now came the difficult question: what would humanity do with such an uncontrollable force? The unknowns were far too many to ignore. No one could predict how the alien species would react, or what the consequences of activating the weapon would be in the long term. Dr. Elaine Reynolds stood in the control room, her eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed the remnants of the alien fleet floating in space. The energy blast had been an overwhelming success, something no one had dared hope for, but she couldn't shake the unease that crept up her spine. She glanced over at the military officers and scientists gathered in the room. Everyone was quiet, their faces filled with uncertainty. There was no celebration here. The victory felt hollow, as if humanity had only stumbled upon a dangerous power, not fully understanding what it might cost. "We've just shown them our strength," General Carter said, his voice steady but with an underlying tension. "But this is far from over. If they come back, and we know they will, we need to be ready." Elaine nodded. "We have the ship, but we don't fully understand how it works yet. The message from their creators warned us to never activate it. We only got one shot, literally. We don't know if it will work again." The general turned to her, a flicker of concern crossing his face. "I'm not worried about whether it'll work again. I'm worried about what comes next. What if this was just a small part of their larger plan? What if they were testing us?" That was the question that lingered in the air. What if Earth had just triggered something much bigger than they could have ever imagined? What if the aliens had been watching, waiting for humanity to make a move? If they were still out there, The next step might be the beginning of a war that would change the galaxy forever. Humanity had unleashed a force that could either protect them or destroy them, and they had no idea which one was coming. The ship's systems were still humming in the background, and Elaine felt the weight of the power they had unlocked. It was an ancient weapon, an artifact from a race that had long since fallen. But there was still so much to uncover. The wreck itself wasn't just a weapon. It was a key to something bigger, something that might explain the mysterious alien species and why they had disappeared. As the days passed, the tension only increased. The military began strengthening defenses, preparing for an attack that could come at any moment. Elaine and her team worked around the clock to study the ship's technology, but every new discovery brought more questions than answers. Each system they unlocked seemed to contain a message, a clue or a fragment of knowledge that hinted at a terrible secret. The deeper they dug, the more they realized that the wreck wasn't just a tool of destruction, it was a warning. Then, one morning, as Elaine was reviewing the latest data, a fresh wave of signals was picked up by Earth's deep space sensors. This time, they were not alone. Dozens of ships, massive ships, bigger than anything humanity had ever seen, were rapidly approaching the solar system. The signals were unmistakable. The alien fleet was returning. "Everyone, get ready," General Carter said over the comms, his voice tight with urgency. "They're back, and they're bringing everything." Elaine's heart raced. The message had been clear now. The aliens weren't here for negotiations. They were coming to reclaim what was theirs, whatever that meant. But this time, humanity wasn't completely defenseless. The ship, the weapon, was their advantage. But it was still untested. Would the alien technology still work? Or was it a one-time miracle, a fluke that had no chance of repeating itself? Elaine's mind raced. The aliens were coming for more than the wrecked ship. They were coming for humanity itself. They had seen the power that Earth had just unleashed. They knew that if they let humanity keep that weapon, it would be a threat to their dominance. The stakes had escalated, and Earth now stood at the precipice of a war that could span galaxies. "We need to make sure the ship's systems are stable," Elaine ordered, her voice firm. "We can't afford to fail this time." As the hours passed, the alien ships drew closer, their shadow growing larger across the stars. The power inside the wrecked ship hummed louder now, almost as if it was sensing the impending threat. The team was preparing for another strike. Elaine's hands shook slightly as she worked, her mind torn between fear and determination. She knew the stakes. She knew that whatever happened next, humanity's future was no longer in their hands. They had crossed a line. There was no going back now. The weapon had worked once, but could it save them again? The alien ships loomed on the edge of Earth's orbit, their massive forms casting long shadows across the void. There was no denying it now. This wasn't a simple recon mission or an isolated event. The aliens were back, and they were bringing everything they had. The fleet was overwhelming, easily outmatching anything Earth had. But that didn't matter anymore. Humanity had something they didn't: the wrecked ship with its powerful weapons still primed and ready. Dr. Elaine Reynolds stared at the glowing holographic readouts in front of her. The ship was humming, the energy inside growing more volatile by the second. She could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her chest. It was no longer just about survival. It was about proving humanity's place in the galaxy. The weapon they had unlocked was the only thing standing between Earth and annihilation. But the question loomed large. Would it work again? General Carter's voice crackled over the comms, his tone as steady as he could manage. "We've confirmed their position. They're not coming to negotiate. We're facing a full assault." Elaine's fingers hovered over the control panel, her mind racing. She had no time for second thoughts. The alien fleet was almost here, and Earth's military forces were no match for them. The ship, this wreck they had stumbled upon, was the only hope left. "Activate the weapon," she ordered. Now, there was no hesitation in her voice, but inside, her heart pounded. The previous blast had been a miracle. Could they repeat it? Could they destroy an entire fleet with a single shot again? As the final sequence was entered, the ship's core pulsed to life, glowing brighter than before. The hum of its power filled the control room, its intensity making the walls tremble. "We're good to go," one of the technicians confirmed, but even his voice sounded uncertain, as if they were all holding their breath. Elaine didn't respond. Her gaze was fixed on the screen. The fleet was drawing closer. Too close. "Fire," she said, her voice almost a whisper. The energy weapon flared to life, a wave of raw power surging outward from the wrecked ship. The blast cut through space, faster than anything the human military could have fired. It was like a pulse of pure destruction, aimed directly at the oncoming alien ships. The first ship in the fleet didn't even have time to react. It exploded in a brilliant flash of light, a violent bloom of energy that sent shockwaves rippling outward. The second ship was close behind, and it too disintegrated under the barrage. The fleet scattered, but it was already too late. The weapon worked. For a moment, there was silence. The station, the military, and everyone else watched in stunned disbelief. Earth had just taken down the largest, most advanced alien fleet in existence with a single shot. The wreck had delivered on its promise, but Elaine couldn't shake the feeling that this victory had come at too high a price. The aliens weren't going to give up. The weapon might have been powerful, but it had proven to be a double-edged sword. What if they came back stronger? What if they learned from this, adapted? Humanity had no idea what they were truly dealing with. "Status report," General Carter's voice cut through her thoughts. "Fleet's been destroyed." The officer at the communications station replied, his voice trembling with awe. "But there's more coming. They're retreating, but not for long." Elaine's chest tightened. She had known this wouldn't be over so easily. The aliens had been testing them, probing their defenses, seeing if humanity would use the weapon. Now that they had, there was no turning back. They had shown their hand. The question was, how would the aliens respond? "I don't trust it," Elaine muttered under her breath. This was too easy. Before anyone could respond, the station's alarms blared to life, and the ship's energy pulse began to flicker, destabilizing. The weapon had drained its energy reserves in a single shot. For now, they were safe, but it wouldn't be long before the aliens returned. They would come with reinforcements. They would adapt. The wreck had been a key, a glimpse of unimaginable power, but that same power now held Earth in its grip. The next time the aliens came, they wouldn't be so easy to defeat. And then, an unexpected transmission came through. It wasn't from the alien fleet. It was from a distant point in space, far beyond the solar system. The message was fragmented, but the meaning was clear. The aliens hadn't been the only ones watching. A far more dangerous force was aware of what had just happened. The message ended abruptly, leaving nothing but cold silence. Elaine's breath caught in her throat. This was just the beginning. Something far bigger than Earth was coming, and humanity, with its newfound weapon, was now the target. The silence in the control room was deafening. Everyone was frozen in place, staring at the display where the mysterious message had just ended. The room was filled with unease, the weight of what had just transpired hanging in the air like a heavy cloud. Elaine's fingers hovered over the console, her heart pounding. The message had been clear, too clear. Earth wasn't just facing a single alien species. It wasn't just fighting for survival against those who had attacked them. There was something bigger, something far more dangerous, watching from the shadows. The transmission had been a warning, and now, humanity's position in the galaxy had changed forever. "Did you see that?" General Carter asked, his voice strained, as though he couldn't believe what had just happened. "Who was that?" Elaine glanced at the screen again, her mind racing. The message was barely coherent, broken into fragments of static and eerie distortion. The words that had come through were simple, but they struck her with a terrifying finality. "The weapon is activated. The hunt begins. It wasn't a threat from the aliens they had just defeated. This was something different. "Who sent this?" one of the officers asked, but no one had an answer. The signals were too weak, originating from deep in the unknown stretches of space. A part of Elaine wanted to dismiss it, but the chill creeping up her spine told her that couldn't be the case. Something was out there, something watching them. "General," Elaine said quietly, her voice calm but filled with an underlying tension. "We don't know who or what that was, but it's clear they know about the weapon. And they're coming for us." Carter rubbed his temples, trying to process the situation. "We need to prepare. If we can get our hands on more of this tech, whatever it is, it could be our only shot at defending ourselves from whatever's out there. We need a strategy." Elaine nodded. "It's not just the weapon they're after. They're after us. The galaxy's power structure is shifting, and humanity's presence is no longer going to be ignored." The minutes ticked by, the tension in the air thickening as the officers scrambled to make sense of the situation. Earth had defeated one alien fleet, but now it was clear that this victory was only a small part of a much larger, more terrifying reality. The wrecked ship had been the key to unlocking unimaginable power, but now, that very power made humanity a target. The holographic display before them shifted, showing the results of a new scan. The alien fleet they had just destroyed had scattered, retreating toward the far reaches of space, but that didn't mean they were gone for good. Elaine's mind raced as she analyzed the data. The wreck had given them a momentary advantage, but the aliens weren't about to let humanity hold on to it. They would come back. They always did. "It's not over," she said softly. "The weapon may have worked once, but we can't rely on it forever. We need to figure out how to keep the upper hand. We need more answers. We need to know who is behind this." Suddenly, the silence was broken by the blaring of alarms. The deep space sensors had detected something. Multiple ships, massive in size, were approaching at an alarming speed. The fleet wasn't retreating. They were regrouping, calling reinforcements from across the galaxy. "We've got company," Carter growled, slamming his fist onto the console. "And this time, we won't be so lucky." Elaine's eyes widened as the new fleet came into view on the screen. These weren't the same ships from the first wave. These were different, bigger, faster, and more dangerous. The technology on display was unlike anything Earth had ever encountered. These ships weren't just warships. They were designed to obliterate entire planets. It was as though the alien race had prepared for this moment, knowing that their initial attack would fail. They'd been expecting humanity to fight back. And now, they had returned with a vengeance. "This is it," Elaine whispered. "We've stirred something ancient, something that might be more powerful than anything we've ever faced." The fleet moved in, and within moments, Earth was no longer just facing one threat. The unknown force from the mysterious message was drawing closer, and with it, the true test of humanity's resolve. "Hold steady," General Carter commanded. "This is the fight we've been preparing for. We have the weapon, and we'll use it. But remember, this won't be easy. This is just the beginning." Elaine nodded, but inside, she couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. Humanity had crossed a line, and now, the galaxy would never be the same. With the enemy at their doorstep and the mystery of the weapon still unresolved, Earth was on the verge of becoming something far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The battle was about to begin, and Earth's fate hung in the balance. But even as the first blast from the alien fleet cracked through space, Elaine couldn't help but wonder, was this really just the beginning, or had they just ignited a chain of events that would lead to their destruction? The universe was watching. And soon, humanity would have to face its reckoning. The night sky above Earth had never felt so fragile. In the control room, every eye was locked on the screens, the weight of the situation pressing down on everyone. The alien fleet loomed like a gathering storm, but this time, it wasn't just any attack. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. Humanity had made its mark, and the galaxy had taken notice. The mysterious force that had issued the chilling message was closing in, but the question on everyone's mind was, what did they want? Elaine stood near the front of the room, hands clenched into fists at her sides. The wrecked ship, now fully activated, pulsed with energy as if alive, its power crackling in the air around her. It was Earth's greatest weapon and its most dangerous asset. The aliens might have underestimated humanity before, but that mistake wouldn't be repeated. Earth had shown them what it was capable of, and now they were out for blood. We can't fight this with just one weapon. Carter's voice was low, almost a growl. We've got to figure out how to replicate it. Fast. Elaine turned to face him, her thoughts racing. We need more than just a weapon. We need answers. What did the message mean? What is this force that's watching us? Carter met her gaze, his expression hard. I don't know, but we're going to find out. We got no choice now. They're here, and they're not leaving without a fight. The seconds felt like hours as the fleet of alien ships continued to approach. The strange force, whatever it was still out there, and they were on the way. The communication from earlier, the cryptic message, had rattled everyone. The weapon is activated. The hunt begins. The words were still fresh in Elaine's mind. The ship had been their salvation, but now it felt like a ticking time bomb, its potential for destruction both a blessing and a curse. Prepare to fire the weapon again, Carter ordered, his voice firm. We don't have time to waste. They're almost in range. Elaine hesitated. She knew the weapon's power, but she also knew its risks. Could they use it again? And if they did, would it be enough? The weapon had already destroyed one fleet, but the incoming armada was larger, better equipped, and they had no idea what kind of countermeasures the mysterious force might have at their disposal. General, I need more time to stabilize the energy levels. One of the technicians spoke up, his voice tense. If we fire too soon, we risk overloading the system. Elaine's heart raced. Time was something they didn't have. The alien fleet was closing in. The countdown to impact had begun. The wrecked ship had given them one chance. Would it give them another? We don't have time for delays. Carter snapped. We'll fire with what we've got. Now. Elaine clenched her jaw, forcing herself to focus. She trusted the techs, but this was uncharted territory. She had no idea if the weapon would work again, or if it might backfire entirely. Still, there was no choice. The hum of energy began to fill the room as the weapon powered up, the walls vibrating from the sheer force being harnessed. Elaine looked at the screen, her mind spinning. The alien ships were almost within firing range. Target locked. The officer at the controls said, We're ready. Elaine's pulse quickened. This was it. Humanity's chance to prove itself. Fire. The weapon discharged with a blinding flash, its energy streaking across the vastness of space. The alien ships didn't have a chance to react. The blast hit them full force, and one by one, they exploded in fiery bursts of light. The first wave was decimated, just like the last. For a moment, it seemed as though Earth had won again. But then, the impossible happened. The alien ships didn't just scatter. They regrouped almost instantly. Their advanced technology had adapted, and now they were coming at them with renewed ferocity. The fleet was reorganizing, forming a more concentrated, defensive formation. We've only taken out a fraction of their fleet, one of the officers said in disbelief. How are they adapting so quickly? Elaine's mind was racing, but her thoughts were interrupted by another incoming transmission. It wasn't from the aliens. This time, the message was clear, direct, and it sent a chill down her spine. We are the Conclave. You have activated a weapon older than your species, and now you will answer for it. The words sent a ripple of fear through the control room. The Conclave. The name meant nothing to Earth's military, yet it felt like a prophecy, as though humanity had awoken something far beyond their understanding. The weapon, Elaine whispered. It's not just a tool of destruction. It's a signal. A call. The room fell into a heavy silence. The aliens were no longer the only threat. This conclave, whoever they were, had been waiting, watching. And now, the hunt had truly begun. General Carter turned toward the window, his expression grim. Prepare for what's coming. We don't know who or what they are, but we've just declared war on an entire galaxy. Elaine's stomach tightened. There was no turning back. Humanity had stepped into a larger conflict, one that would test them in ways they couldn't yet comprehend. The galaxy was no longer just a backdrop. It was a battlefield. As the alien fleet began to regroup and the conclave's ominous warning echoed in the air, Elaine knew one thing for sure. Humanity was about to face its greatest test, and whether they survived or not would depend on how quickly they adapted to the universe's harsh new reality. The hunt had begun, and Earth was its prey.